It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley. I'm Gary McNamara. I missed that meme. Eric just told me about a meme that's been going viral on social media, and for some reason, I did not see it.
Yeah, one of our great listeners, also named Gary, wrote us, and he just laid the meme right there, embedded it in the email, and it says, "Trump just showed the world that Hamas is easier to negotiate with than the Democrats." Let that sink in. That's beautiful. Gary, thank you so much. We appreciate that.
That should have been a Babylon Bee headline.
Oh, yeah.
Because with everything that happened yesterday, so I got into work. I went to the Babylon Bee.
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, I did other research besides the Babylon Bee. I want to make that clear.
Yeah, we do hang out there a lot.
Yes, but when I saw their lead headlines, Hitler brings peace to Israel, and then the next one, Greta Thunberg awarded Nobel Prize for ending the war in Gaza.
That's probably how it will go.
Well, before we laugh and say how ridiculous are the headlines, let's wait a week.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And see what happens.
All right, yeah.
I don't know where to go this hour. There's just too much stuff.
It is crazy.
I got it. Let's the new stuff first.
Okay.
Right. And even though the beginning of the peace deal, phase 1, part 1, is still new news because
now, is this the peace deal between Trump and Letitia James or between Israel and Hamas?
I was talking Israel and Hamas, but okay. I just do wish to start with if as long as you say it's okay.
Yeah, why not?
The whole Letitia James. When you were coming in, when you walked in, you're sort of looking. I go, I'm going through the entire indictment here.
Yeah, right.
Of Letitia James, and this one, there are a lot of questions we had about the Comey indictment. We don't know. I don't know, frankly, where that's going to go, because I don't know what they actually have in evidence besides besides McCabe.
Right.
I don't know who else they're using.
Right.
And, McCabe's been all over the place. I don't know if he would be a hostile witness for the prosecution. Mm-hmm. So I just don't know what they have by looking at the indictment. And I have not seen a bill of particulars yet. Have you?
I have not.
For that one. But looking at the indictment itself for James, if they have, and they have to have, otherwise they couldn't make these allegations, but I don't have the mortgage application in front of me. I don't have her taxes in front of me. But what they are saying is they have this all on paper, and if they do, this looks pretty slam dunk, Eric.
Well, it does. If again, and you and I, as we were going over it in the pre-show meeting, we were talking about the nature of it. Again, the nature of establishing a loan for residential versus a second home or a rental property, which would be a commercial loan in the eyes of the bank. If Fannie Mae is involved, that changes everything, and it changes the rate, and which is relatable because, of course, with her indictment on Trump, it was about going in and based on nothing. It's based on his assessment versus what the bank thought his properties were worth, and she said because he claimed this in his assessment and also put on those documents that due diligence would be required. And there was no complaint from the bank, by the way, or the insurance companies. But she went after him for seeking more favorable terms from the insurance companies and banks. And according to this indictment, if this is accurate information, That's what she's being accused of doing.
Right. But as we said, it wasn't a mortgage application. Assessments are a completely different ballgame.
Right.
And as we have said, if Trump, and I believe that will be, I believe that will be overturned completely when they eventually get to it, because it's bogus.
Yeah.
You can't even identify a victim. Here you can.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the actual mortgage applications, and then when she filed her taxes, it's more evidence against what she actually did in the mortgage application.
Right.
And just very quickly, it says, on or about August 17th, 2020, James, as a sole borrower, purchased a three-bedroom, one-bathroom home in Virginia for approximately $137,000, financed with a mortgage loan of approximately $109,000, backed by Fannie Mae. The loan was originated by OVM Financial under a signed second home rider, which required James, under the law, as the sole borrower, to occupy and use the property as her secondary residence, and prohibited its use as a time-sharing or other shared ownership arrangement or agreement that requires her to rent the property or give any other person any control over the occupancy or use of the property. Despite those representations, the property was not occupied or used by James as a secondary resident and was instead used as a rental investment property, renting the property to a family of three. This misrepresentation allowed James to obtain favorable loan terms. I won't go through all the specific interest rates and everything else from it, and they go through each and every, they go through point by point.
Residential loans are typically more favorable on the rates, and then an income property would be more of a commercial loan.
Right.
And that's going to be a higher rate.
They go through that interest rate. They go through the seller credit that was different. But the ill-gotten gains, and that's the total ill-gotten gains of approximately $19,000 over the life of the loan. And so they have the actual amount. And then they have here James Universal Property application for homeowners insurance indicated homeowner occupied non-seasonal use, further misrepresenting the intended use of the property.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
So she put it there that it was for her residence. Then on her taxes, under the penalty of perjury, she said that the property was rental real estate, reporting fair rental days, 0 personal use days, thousands of dollars in rents received, and then claiming deductions for expenses relating to that property, further contradicting the second home classification. So that shows intent. It shows that she knew exactly what she was doing.
Right.
And that's on paper.
Yep. Because if you're telling the IRS for taxes, I'm taking basically your business deductions, and, this is what I was, this is the income, and these were my expenses and all of that. You're doing that, and you set that up. Now, the question would be, now the IRS isn't seeking anything, because it appears, again, she didn't live in the home. So if she's reporting that to the IRS as an income property, then they don't have a beef. That goes back again to the loan that she took out and the insurance that she took out on this property. So you and I talked about it.
No, she didn't lie to the IRS, it seems.
That's what I'm saying.
But
that's exactly what I just said.
But that proves her fraud to the banks.
No, the fact that she told the IRS that's her signing her taxes, because either she's lying, she's lying one way or the other,
right?
But she's looking for favorable terms across the board, and she did not lie. The IRS looks at it and says, well, no, she claimed it as a rental property, and they don't really, again, there's no pursuit here by the IRS. We're talking about getting those favorable terms, again, for a cheaper rate for your interest rate on the loan and your premium on your insurance on the property.
Can they get her for something? Just popped into my head. Because she claimed deductions because she claimed it was on the mortgage loan for her own personal use, and then to the IRS said it was not.
That would be that. Certainly, at that point, you're.
Isn't that a? We'll look into that. We'll look into that.
It depends on if there was a discrepancy, on there of. Again, if she lied to any, it would just basically she would have had to have claimed something false to the IRS in order to, not pay as much in taxes, and get favorable terms there as well.
Right.
So.
And so count one is bank fraud from or on or about August 7th, 2020 to at least January 24 in the Eastern District through January 24. Wasn't she prosecuting Trump at that time? In the Eastern District of Virginia and elsewhere, the defendant did knowingly execute and attempt to execute a scheme to defraud OVM Financial and First Savings Bank financial institutions and to obtain money, funds, and credits owned by and under the custody and control of the financial institutions by means of false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises. The scheme involved falsely representing the property as a secondary residence to obtain favorable mortgage terms while using it as an investment property with no intended or actual personal occupancy or use by her. That would be count one. Count two is false statements to a financial institution. So one is bank fraud, and the other is the false statements that she made. She did knowingly make and cause to be made false statements and reports for the purpose of influencing the action of the financial institutions upon the application of the loan, in that she represented and affirmed in uniform residential loan application and related documents that the property would be used as a secondary residence when it was not. So there you go. So I saw it could be 60 years in prison, which it won't be. 60 years in prison and a $2 million fine are the maximum penalties for this.
I would also wonder about the local appraisal district, because if, in our appraisal district, if your home is your homestead, you get a homestead exemption.
Ah, you're right.
Right. And in fact, at one point, and I've multiple points over my real estate career as a landlord, had properties within multiple properties and my homestead all within the same appraisal district, but you can't claim them all to be your homestead, only one. And the question would be, okay, but if they're not dealing, if she also had a property outside that appraisal district here in Virginia may not even know that if she was claiming, and I'm just asking a question. Nobody's making that charge against her.
Right. Well,
but
not yet.
It wouldn't be,
because it
wouldn't be a federal charge.
Right.
I don't know how they would handle that. They may just come in and tell her, well, you no longer qualify for the exemption, and it's not even a slap on the wrist. I don't know, but I'm just saying in these situations,
would that happen to you or I in the state of Texas if we did that? I don't think so. I think we'd probably be prosecuted.
Yeah, if I tried to claim in two different appraisal districts a homestead exemption, I would think they would come after me.
Well, they might correct you, but after you have been charged with bank fraud, and
if I engaged in that,
you've shown already what the intent was. It wasn't an accident that you put it for a homestead exemption.
No, that's a great point.
So you've got bank fraud and false statements to financial institutions that you've been charged with at the federal level. I can see then the state, now it won't be the state prosecutor, or whatever, the county.
Yeah, it would be the county.
Yeah. It would be in Virginia. It would be in Virginia. It wouldn't be in New York. Yeah, it'd be in Virginia. It would be separate.
Right.
And,
but if they found that her property in New York or whatever, she was also claiming a homestead exemption. Now, different central appraisal districts may have a different rule saying, well, if you're telling us it's a secondary home, I mean, it gets really squirrely.
She might not have gone for it as a secondary home anyway, because you can't do it.
Yeah, I don't. But the thing is the reason that I just have experience of about 32 years, my wife and I owning rental properties, about how you can set things up and how you can't. I never wanted to get it wrong with the IRS, with a bank loan, because, that thing called prison. I wanted to make sure that when we went through everything, hey, this is what we're doing with the property. We're not moving into this property if we were buying a rental or anything like that. And it was more expensive, but that was part of the price of doing business.
86690 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller. Compliance, Safety, Accountability is the FMCSA Safety, Compliance, and Enforcement Program. Its goal is to hold motor carriers and drivers accountable for highway safety. CSA does this by assessing the safety performance of motor carriers and drivers. Motor carriers are assigned a score. The carrier is then grouped with other carriers who have had a similar number of safety events. Carrier scores within the group are then ranked. Low scores are better, so carriers with the highest scores are those that are most likely to be targeted for intervention by the FMCSA. Interventions range in severity and may include warning letters, roadside, off-site, or on-site inspections, civil penalties, or operation out-of-service orders. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I mean, there's so much to tear apart after this indictment. And I know everywhere that you went yesterday, everything was on, well, Trump was going to get her back, and she should have never gone after Trump. And look, the politics is always a part of it, and we'll get to that. But what we looked at when we first analyzed, and we mentioned that when Letitia James was running for office, she said she's going to go after Trump, even though she had nothing specific whatsoever. And what she came up with when you looked at the mortgage fraud that she claimed from Trump was completely and totally bogus. An assessment is not a mortgage application.
Right.
As we all know.
Right.
An assessment is simply you assessing what you believe it is.
Right.
And these are well-known practices. It's not like, whoa, you can do this?
Right.
Well, we all know this. How do we know this? Because whenever we fight our own property taxes, we come up with our own assessment, and we fight against the county assessors to say you're wrong and I'm right.
Right.
Well, then anybody who did that, whatever figure you went, if you lost, well, then you should be charged with fraud.
According to Letitia James, and according to her standard used with Trump.
And then we went to the fact and we said, well, then you could make the MSRP on every vehicle.
Hey, it's truck month.
Right.
And exactly.
You could call that fraud because nobody is paying that. You're setting a value that nobody pays.
$12,000 off. Well,
right.
It's what?
Whenever I see that, by the way,
yeah.
When I see that it's like $17,000 off this vehicle, my first thing is, wow, I think I may buy it. My first thought is, how the hell much is that truck?
Right, exactly.
If I'm getting, wait a minute, they're giving me $17,000.
Outside of truck month, you guys are making $12,000 to $15,000 per truck. I don't see that. You and I follow the financial media.
Right.
We don't see that anywhere in terms of profits.
But
on units.
But you're right. But you're right. Not just the MSRP, but when they do things like that, you could make the case. Where is this? Is this figure coming from anything that you actually? No, it's not. But it's not viewed as fraud in New York or any other state.
Right.
It's bargaining.
Exactly.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now, we do know, by the way, just because we were expanding on New York and Letitia James, and when she went after Trump and her definition of fraud and everything else, and then we went and said, well, by what she accused Trump of doing, which is an assessment, you're making an assessment. And in Trump's case, he made an assessment of his properties and even said that, this is my opinion, do your own due diligence.
Right.
As banks always do. And as we said, it was not on a mortgage application where you have to tell the truth.
Yeah, for Trump, it wasn't.
Right. It wasn't. And that's a key difference. So take the politics out of it for a moment. Look at the actual evidence that exists under the law. Now, we did say that, because you had mentioned that, and I think even in the state of Texas, you can't say we're always having a sale.
There are things out there that it's more of an advertising, law with, the furniture store that's been going out of business for 90 years.
Yes.
And everything must go, but it's been there for 90 years. But, and what they said was, and at that time, I don't know if this is just a state law here or if that law is still even in play. This goes back some time. A friend of mine was in the retail business, and they said what they had to do is you have to end a sale. Sale ends, and you see that on signs. Sale ends, and it has a date. And then they can come back later and have a sale. I don't know if the law requires them to have so much time between a similar sale, but they can't just have the same sale going 24/7, 365 for 90 years.
Right.
Now, the thing with Trump in doing his assessment, in valuation of his properties, it is required for him to be truthful, but the accuracy has a lot of leeway, which is why on that paperwork that he was submitting, you have to do your own due diligence. That's why those companies, whether it's insurance or banks, especially at that level, they have to do they'll issue an appraisal, which the cost may go to him as a part of the cost of, the loan or whatever the business is. But they'll issue an appraisal and have somebody appraise the property or find a relevant appraisal or an appraisal even on that property from recent years that could be used. He has to tell the truth, but it's not the same kind of thing of saying, I'm going to take this property and I'm going to use it for this, and then clearly, and this is what it appears from the indictment for Letitia James, doing something else with it to get favorable terms. And, again, she was accusing him of doing that, and he actually, again, his people or whoever prepared those documents on the valuation for his properties, they were, they had to, do your own due diligence here, because ultimately the decision is on those companies.
Right.
It's not on him.
But the agreement was mutually agreed to, whatever the assessment was, in order to get those loans. And I have to, when you talk about assessment, what is the truth? Mm-hmm. And I go back to the time that I really fought my property taxes, and I went, they're too high on this, and I started looking at comps.
Right.
And I found the comps that made it. Let's just do it hypothetically. All right, totally. I'm not. This is not the figures. $500 million
of
my home.
$500 million.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to take it half of what my home is worth.
Right.
A billion.
So we can relate to the average person.
$1 billion home.
I don't even know what that looks like.
Let's just use 100,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I live in a shack in Texas, but let's say it's that they come out and they say your house is worth 100,000.
Right.
And I look at it, and I looked at like 2-3 comps within probably 1.5 mile radius of my house.
Right.
That were just like mine, and I went, wow, I can make the case that my house is worth $50,000 based on these comps.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I knew my assessment is higher, but I'm looking at how the county judged these properties.
And how basically the process works in you gathering information as the property owner and making your case.
But what's the truth? In my mind, I knew my house should not be assessed at $50,000.
Right.
I knew it was worth more than that, but I looked at what they did and what they did on those comps and said, I can make the case for $50,000. Now, I was stupid. I should have said $70,000 because I only lost 2-1.
Yeah.
So one of them agreed. I blew me away. I'm like, that's really good. I actually got one to agree with me. Now, what I didn't know is, because this is the first time I ever fought it, I had no idea
it's not a negotiation.
That it's not a negotiation. I thought I could get it somewhere in between so I can go low.
Right.
It was like when they won, I had to pay, the assessment was the $100,000 and not the $50,000. And I was like, oh, you don't negotiate in between? Can't we make it 70? They went, no.
Right.
Like, oh, okay.
Well, and even in the valuation of the properties for President Trump in his personal life, or if it is an appraisal with our properties, all of us everyday people, all of us normal folks, and look, you should feel good. $100,000. I heard from a judge that's what Mar-a-Lago's worth. Just $100,000. So you have a lot in common with President Trump.
Well, no, but remember, part of that problem was that judge making the statement that, of course, this goes further because Mar-a-Lago's only worth, and it was some type of figure that every commercial real estate person came out and said, this judge is a lunatic. Donald
Trump Jr. posted, I think that evening or right after that, wow, I'll take 10 of them, please.
Yeah, well, but it wasn't just him. It was other, real estate people in where is it? Palm Beach or wherever it is?
Yeah.
I forgot where it is, but they
somewhere in Florida.
Yeah, they came out and
it's
said
in Mar-a-Lago, Florida.
Yeah, the Southern White House.
Let's make that happen.
And they were just like, he's out of his mind. This guy, and so they didn't have a clue as to what assessments were worth, and they're charging him, with fraud. But when the deal was done, they agreed to it. In this case,
see, that's right. The thing. That's the difference.
In this case with Letitia James, they bought
conditional.
They bought into her fraud.
Yes, it's conditional
because
according to the charges, she lied about the conditions for the use of the property.
Home. Right.
Okay. So in any appraisal situation, the underwriters, whether it's insurance or banks, they're looking at it. It doesn't really get down to it, and you were asking the question just openly. Well, who's right? Well, it's the business standard, that they will look at and say, well, we're willing to do this based on our valuation of this amount. So whether it's a single family property that you're getting appraised for yourself, they'll come back and you might think it's higher or lower, and the bank, if you're going to get a loan on it or whatever, says it's lower than whatever you wanted. That happens all the time, and it is kind of a wonky situation, but it's basically those underwriters saying we're willing to take this amount of risk based on this. In lying about the use of the property, you're changing the nature of the loan. The loan product is different. And it's different for a reason. Because if you've got renters, you're not living in the property, clearly, and this is it. Your renters aren't going to take care of the property like you because they don't own it. So it's also a business. If she had gone in and said, this is going to be an income property. Well, it's a business. There might be months and months where it goes empty. And so they have to account for that. So you've got to have your income. I've done this, I don't know how many times. You've got to have your income outside of that property income already set to where you can make that payment. Or you have to show that property has, someone is already in it and has a 5-year lease. So that brings the probability of that income being steady for, way up. All of those things go into that. There's a reason that it costs more because there's greater risk in doing business. And that's it. And for, the Fannie Mae side of it, it was basically, and we're not fans of Fannie Mae and the government-sponsored entities. They should be gone. But the idea there is to help people who essentially don't have the higher income, and Fannie Mae can come in and take actually it's helping a lot of banks, take those products off of the banks' sheets, and the government, the taxpayers, taking on that risk.
Right, exactly, which is
garbage. We shouldn't be doing it. But,
which is why we're against the Trump administration
Yes,
wanting to expand
exactly.
Fannie and Freddie, which has got us into the crap we were in 2008, 2009. And
Right.
now you saw the latest, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That now Trump is saying we need to subsidize the home builders.
The home builders. No.
That federal taxpayer dollars need to subsidize home builders. That was a story yesterday that had that hit the media that didn't get a lot of publicity.
Right.
But in this case, she made the best witness, the best prosecution witness against Letitia James is Letitia James.
Yes. Because she's got signed documents that counter.
Right. And what really screws her over is the fact that not only did she commit the fraud by stating this was going to be a secondary property for her, and it ended up being just an investment property, it's the fact that when she filed her taxes, and this would be every year. Yeah. Because this fraud started in 2021.
2020,
I
think.
Was it 2020? Yeah, 2020, and went through. They have it through January of 24. And by the way, she was at that point the Attorney General of New York State, going after Trump for mortgage fraud or for fraud, or commercial real estate fraud, I guess it would be. While she was committing mortgage fraud, and she knew she was doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's on the paper, and because she put on the mortgage application one thing, and on her taxes every year a completely different thing, which means she knew the difference.
Maybe that's where she got the idea. We always say liberals accuse the right of doing what they're actually doing.
Yeah. As long as that paperwork is there and she signed it, we said this case is different than Trump. This is a much easier case.
Yep.
You simply look at it. Well, she had nothing against Trump.
Yeah.
But it's a much easier case than even the Comey case, because either she put it down on paper or she did not put it down on paper.
Right.
One or the other. It's either there or not.
Because, again,
she signed it. Now, I didn't know what she put on her taxes. That's the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because of what she put on her taxes.
A document you have to sign under the penalty of perjury.
Right.
You know, everybody does it every year. Well, people that pay their taxes.
Which completely contradicts what was on the mortgage application.
Yep.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio, and he's Eric Harley. I'm Gary McNamara. Remember, before she was Attorney General, she was City Council of New York City. She was public advocate. Remember, she's the one that tried to convince or force the banks not to finance or give loans to gun companies.
Yes, right. Yep.
And so, but think about this. When she was planning to go after Trump for fraud, she knew she had committed mortgage fraud, that if anybody did any type of basic investigation, they would be able to find out like this. These aren't hard investigations to do.
No, they're not.
Where's your mortgage application?
Right.
Where's your taxes?
Right.
That's the case.
No, there's a paper trail everywhere you need it with her signature, and by that signature it says, and there's a disclaimer on those very forms that you sign this and you swear that this is true, under the penalty of fraud, and whether it's your taxes or the application, because what she was doing, according to the allegations, is she's going into the bank and applying for one product. And based on her intent, again, according to the indictment, of that property, that product did not apply and did not qualify.
And then, again, the nail in the legal coffin is her taxes.
And then
where she states the opposite.
She signs off and says, this is what I did with the property.
And that's why, the arrogance that you must have.
Yeah.
What
right.
kind of arrogance? You're the Attorney General of New York State.
Yeah.
Who's going to go after a guy who's going to run for president again was president.
But remember back then,
right.
Trump didn't have even some of his own party support. Everybody I think on the left, they all thought, we're going to win this with Trump. We're going to get away with this.
Yeah.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara.
Good morning.
So, I guess one more point on the Letitia James indictment.
Yeah.
Going through the mainstream media, everybody's talking about, Trump's just going after her. It's revenge. It's this. It's that. It's like, is he angry? Yeah. Did he say, look to see if they did anything wrong? Yeah. Did she do something wrong? All the evidence points, something illegal? Absolutely. And I was reading here from a guy who's a lawyer. He said, I've changed my mind. The evidence has changed my mind. The New York Attorney General has some real issues. Evidence, DOJ says, proves Letitia James defrauded the bank. Claimed her Virginia home was a secondary residence to get better loan terms. Signed a second home rider promising to live there. Actually rented it out to tenants. Reported rental income then on her tax returns. Told insurer it was owner-occupied. Saved $19,000 from the false claim.
And was that $19,000, by the way, did that include insurance rates? Were they able to adjust for insurance rates?
I don't.
That was just, I think
I think
that was just the interest rates on the loan.
That was the interest rate, and I think the buyer credit or something like that
right.
they had in there, which came to $18,933.
Yeah, seller credit of $3,280. Yeah. Okay, so and I don't know, it gets kind of wonky when you talk like insurance rates and coverage and everything else. But it certainly, again, would be more favorable if it's owner-occupied.
Now, I don't know, because is it different now? Is this like where shoplifting, for example, if it's under $900, prosecutors are just supposed to not deal with it? Yeah. Is there a new liberal idea out there that anything under any mortgage fraud under $20,000 should be left alone?
Yeah, right.
Is that something new out there?
No. Actually, wait for it. Trump's a billionaire, and he was defrauding people to the tunes of billions, and hers was only $19,000 by their own admission. All right. Wait for it. Look, she said it herself when she went after Trump. Nobody is above the law. That was playing.
I'm reading already, or some people saying this is minor. If it is, why are lenders required to document this? If it's all part of the federal mortgage rules, there are also IRS rules for loan terms and tax benefits. Insurer probably charges different for primary residence as well.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to, see, but they keep bringing up, people could say, it's a minor crime. It's a minor crime. And she would have never been caught if it wasn't for the fact that she went after Trump.
Yeah, if it weren't for Scooby-Doo and those meddling kids. I mean, what the hell? If she broke the law, then apply it.
When you're sympathetic to murderers, lesser crimes are no big deal.
Here's another thing, too. Shouldn't there be a standard if you're going to be the top cop in a state?
Yeah, probably.
To not do things like break the law.
And remember, she did it while she was Attorney General of New York State.
Exactly. It's got to hurt, man. It's got to hurt. It's got to hurt. I mean, the left over and over again is being proven. As we were talking about this, you brought up something. Don't you know you're going to get caught? With them, especially back in 2020, anytime after or during Trump's first term, the political winds were not at Trump's back the way they are today with both his own party and the American people. They thought they could get away with anything. They thought they could do whatever they wanted and do whatever they want, throw whatever they want at him and get away with it. Clearly. Because if all of this, according to the affidavit of the indictment here on Letitia James, if all this proves to be accurate and true, and again, we're talking about a paper trail that should be very clear.
Yeah, the paper trail exists or it doesn't.
It's not. We're relying on witness testimony and so-and-so can't remember this or that. This is a paper trail that she had to sign. And so, but as this plays out here, this is what they were afraid of. This is why a Letitia James goes after a Trump. It's why you do the whole Russian hoax thing, and when that doesn't work, you've got to go after him even harder when he becomes president, and you got to bring in a special counsel, and the whole Russian hoax thing has to play out. And then, wait, he's getting too close to the fire on the Biden family and all of their stuff they were doing in Ukraine, and so let's start an impeachment process. You do everything you can to bring him down as president. So, and they thought they were going to win this.
So here's Anderson Cooper with I'm not the master of my domain, Jeffrey Toobin. All right, here on and the argument is not about whether the charges are legit or not. Everything is about this is just revenge from Trump. Well, you can make that argument back and forth, but it's meaningless when it comes to the court where law is broken. But here it is.
The system is not supposed to work.
Jeff, I mean, according to PolitiFact, the day after she was elected in 2018, Letitia James was asked by a community activist if she was going to sue President Trump, and she replied, quote, "Oh, we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally." I mean, that's not a great look for somebody who has just been elected or just been campaigning, who hasn't even looked, I guess, at deeply at any evidence.
Or even any crime.
Right.
Here we go. Let's continue. Here we go.
Well, that's, we live in a system where attorneys general and district attorneys in the United States, unlike almost any other country, are elected officials, are politicians. So they run for office making political statements. That's how our system works. It's not pretty. I don't think it's a great system, but there's nothing uncommon about it. The other point to make, though, is just because she made inappropriate comments, that doesn't mean she should get indicted for fraud years later.
She's not getting indicted, and if you talk about political revenge, it's not because of what she said.
No.
It's because of what she did, but then Jeffrey Toobin, you're not really one that has any credibility.
Yeah, keep your pants on, too.
Yeah.
But this is the...
Yeah, keep your pants on here.
So the entire thing is,
just so you know, if anybody doesn't know,
I think we do have to remind people.
he is Jeffrey Toobin, this legal analyst you're listening to, is a guy who got caught. Was a Zoom call?
Yeah.
What media outlet was he with?
CNN, right?
Was it CNN?
Yeah.
Doing a Zoom call, masturbating.
Yeah. During the call.
During the call. Yes.
Yeah.
Was it CNN? Okay.
Yeah.
It was CNN. Okay. Which means he's not, and the disgusting thing about it, he's a news analyst, and there's no way you can be analyzing the news if you're involved in that type of activity, which is what we're always wondering, because the camera now was just showing him from the waist up.
Yeah, don't tell me.
Was his analysis that bad because he wasn't paying attention, because his mind was elsewhere?
Don't tell me you have a passion for legal analysis, because you clearly have a passion for something else.
Oh, my God. But it was bad because, again, when his analysis, irrespective of his lack of
Control,
being the king of his castle,
yeah,
to use every Seinfeld reference we can. Yeah. He was completely wrong. The premise was wrong, as he said. She was indicted because of what she said when she ran. Yeah, that was it. Just because of what she said, she was indicted for something.
Is the evidence there or not?
You know, one of the things I think the average Joe who would sit there, because I was sitting here thinking to myself, would I ever be tempted to commit mortgage fraud like that? And the answer would be no. Why?
No.
Because I would be caught too easily. It would be too easy to be. And
you could lose everything.
I could lose everything, and the evidence would be there. She was New York Attorney General when she did that. If everything from what we can see is true, because this isn't a hard case, this isn't a case where you need witnesses. This is strictly what was on paper. She said, as New York's top cop, I'll commit fraud, but I'll go after you for anything as I'm committing fraud.
In fact, I'm going to go after you and indict you on something that I'm actually doing myself.
Yes. That's how we average people, who, by the way, Jeffrey Toobin, believe we should have some kind of decorum while being on the air, even if we don't have cameras in the room. We believe in.
What do we always advise?
We're fully clothed here, just so everybody knows.
We are. We are. I can't speak for our production crew, but they may be wearing shorts. But this is something we've been talking about for a long time. The weather guy in the morning says, don't forget your rain jacket. We always start with, don't forget your pants. Put your pants on.
We'll probably get some.
It's the number one rule.
We'll get some response from our listeners. That was the most obscene and disgusting and sexualized discussion on mortgage fraud I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. Wow. Favorable terms? Yeah? Huh? I don't even know what that means, but it's a good thing.
Hey, with the stroke of a pen, it's mortgage fraud.
That's right.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Autumn for gardeners usually means harvest and preparing the garden for overwintering and next spring. What if the garden bug continues to itch in the early fall? Kansas State University Extension Cynthia Domangini offers this idea.
Consider growing a fall crop of leafy greens, and you can continue reseeding those until you get into a hard freeze. That's a fun crop to grow in the fall because you can get regrowth and extend your gardening season, basically.
And when that first frost occurs, what are protection considerations for tender vegetables?
Individually cover plants. Some people even use empty plastic milk jugs where they cut the bottom of the the jug out and they can place that over the top of a sensitive plant. But you can also use blankets or sheet of plastic to create a low tunnel or row cover over multiple plants to extend the amount of time that you're able to be harvesting.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Coming up following the bottom of the hour, we'll talk about this, that even MSNBC couldn't seem to find anything negative in this segment. Are you ready? This is on Morning Joe yesterday, and David Ignatius here.
The deal that President Trump is announcing played a key part in negotiating. It is a significant change. This war was blocked for 2 years. President Biden, who preceded him, was unable to find a way to stop it. President Trump found that way by being tough on both sides. And he'll take a victory lap for sure over the next few days, but it's deserved. There's no way that I can see that this would have been done without Trump's pressure in the final hours.
That's, just so you know, MSNBC.
And we played the reporter from ABC. There actually were a couple of reporters that when the news was breaking, they were talking about how this is a huge win, a huge victory for him. But by the way, he earned that victory. He's earned this victory. If everything plays out, in the coming days, weeks, months, being able to put this deal together is a huge accomplishment. Because right now, every indicator is those hostages will be released Monday and Tuesday.
And we'll get to the specifics of that. I was reading the Wall Street Journal editorial for today, agreeing with us, where it said, well, what if they back off on it? It goes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter even if they, Hamas, did I say Hamas? If Hamas, attempts to back out, once they lose the hostages, they have nothing to turn to. But even if they don't release the hostages, Israel has to go through the president to do whatever. And now it seems through the rest of the world to do whatever they wish to do. And that's the difference in it. But I want to play this audio first because I'm sure this is the way. This is Senator Fetterman talking, and I'm sure the rest of the Democratic Party, all you Democrats out there, agree with his comments here. Here we go.
The president deserves the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, I mean, if this sticks, I think the whole point of having a Nobel Peace Prize is for ending wars and promoting peace. And I'm going to make a direct appeal to the president. I hope he chooses to provide the tomahawks to the Ukrainians, too, and give them the tools that they need to push back against Russia. And if he brings the Ukrainian war to its end, I'll be the Democrat leading the committee for his Nobel Prize Peace.
Peace Prize.
Right, yeah.
Well,
I'm sure all Democrats.
Well, I was looking at that parade where he's leading it.
Yeah.
There'd be Fetterman. Who's behind him? Who's behind him in that Democrat parade?
Yeah. Maybe RFK Jr. That's about it. That's about all there is. And but good for Fetterman. Everybody is asking him all the time now, you're going to change parties? You're going to change parties? He keeps saying, no, I'm not changing parties. And I made the joke, that sounds like somebody who's about to change parties.
Yeah.
But, he's saying it. And he's been, Fetterman, very pro-Israel. Remember, I love the video of him walking out of the Senate building at the Capitol, and he's walking out, and there's all those protesters out there, and he's just, I forget what he said, but he's pro-Israel, and he was just kind of smiling at them. He didn't flinch on his stance on Israel. And you saw an entire radical party here get with those protesters and their anti-Semitism. And it's just sickening to watch. But Donald Trump gets the win here. Just the way that this plan was structured and put together. By the way, all the players that we mentioned that are part of it, the Marco Rubio and everybody else that was a part of it, of course they get credit, but Trump is the leader.
But I think that Marco Rubio could be headed towards the label of a statesman.
Yes. Yep.
On our website, RedEyeRadioShow.com. Show info with stations, podcasts, and more. Red Eye Radio.
And we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. All right, so looking here, Wall Street Journal editorial page, making almost the exact same points that we were making yesterday on this deal. By the way, thanks to many of our listeners who really appreciated that we went through all the 20 different points. Right. Now, I think they only go up to point 4 on this deal. It's only point
in the Wall Street Journal, you mean?
No, on the first phase of this deal is just to point 4. We went through all 20 yesterday.
Right.
And this is about what they have to go through to release all the hostages.
Well, and
to that point,
right? And it was important to go through the 20 because we made the point in breaking that down on yesterday's show of, all right, it's after the hostages are released. There's still a whole set of contingencies that have to play out. It's not just the plan, but you want that in place, and it was probably the only way that Hamas was going to agree to it because it gives the upper hand. Clearly, the upper hand is to Israel and, of course, by default, the U.S. But then there are incentives there, but in breaking that down, those 20 points were all important if this is to work.
Yeah, because what you want is you want Hamas out of power, and you want a government installed there that is closely monitored,
right?
So you know that the influence of Hamas is gone. This is I want to read this part of the Wall Street Journal editorial because it mirrors almost 100% of what we said yesterday.
Okay.
Remarkably, Hamas is giving up its best leverage, but Israel is not. Even after the hostages are ransomed, Israeli soldiers will remain in more than half of Gaza, including by the Egyptian border, to stop weapons smuggling. Israel is not emptying its prisons of Hamas, as Hamas has demanded, but it is releasing 250 terrorists serving life sentences and 1,700 Gazans detained during the war. Will this see the next attack as a 2011 hostage deal seeded October 7th by freeing its mastermind? The answer depends on Israel's ability to enforce the latter phases of the deal. If the new Gulf Arab-led stabilization force to be deployed in Gaza fails to disarm Hamas and demilitarize the Strip, Israel will be in position, and the troops to do so themselves with what Mr. Trump calls full backing. In accepting these terms, Hamas effectively acknowledges its defeat, even if it hopes to bide its time and live to fight another day. How did this peace arrive after 2 years? The dubious theory of Israel's critics is that Mr. Trump finally squeezed Netanyahu. This wish-casting fails to explain Hamas's concessions and gets the story backwards. Mr. Trump's consistent support for Israel achieved what all of Joe Biden's pressure on and threats to Israel did not. Mr. Trump was able to push past some of Mr. Netanyahu's concerns about post-war Gaza governance because he had earned Israel's trust. With Mr. Biden, the prime minister could presume Israel would be denied the freedom of action to keep Hamas down, as we have said.
Yep.
This whole deal is based on the fact that Trump has made it clear, this is the first part of the deal. If we don't go to the second part of the deal and agree to that, Israel's full bore goes back in again immediately. And they have the positions where they are to do so. We'll pull back a little bit, but we're in position to go after and complete the job. And he said, Mr. Netanyahu deserves credit for withstanding U.S. and domestic Israeli pressure to end the war earlier and in a weaker position, because it was even coming from what's inside the country. Let me see. The lessons of Mr. Trump's method are also worth noting. First, sustained U.S. pressure was needed on Hamas, not Israel. The more Mr. Biden restrained Israel or blocked arms shipments, the less reason Hamas had to cut a deal. The terrorists expected Mr. Biden to force Israel to stop if they held out long enough. Mr. Trump reversed Hamas's calculus. Neither protest nor Iranian escalation would cause him to rein in Israel. Instead, his threats to Hamas garnered a January hostage deal, after which he encouraged Israel to conquer Gaza. That was nearing completion when Hamas took this new deal. Second, there was no substitute for Israeli military pressure. Even a few weeks ago, the conventional wisdom was that the war was no longer accomplishing much, least of all the recent Gaza City offensive. Fighting in this sensitive area was supposed to doom the hostages. Hamas saw it differently. Facing the demolition of its capital, it first agreed to a partial hostage deal that it had resisted for months. When Mr. Netanyahu said this wasn't enough and demanded all hostages be freed at once, critics said this meant the prime minister wanted no deal. Wrong again. Hamas buckled, and Israel is getting back all of its hostages. Third, Hamas's allies had to feel the heat. Mr. Biden stressed de-escalation, opposing the offensive against Hezbollah and shielding Iran from stronger retaliation. He backed Egypt in blocking Gazan refugees and renewed the U.S. military base in Qatar for nothing in return. Mr. Trump backed and then joined Israel's June campaign against Iran, leaving Hamas's political strategy in shambles. Iranian escalation could no longer bail out Hamas. You and I talked about this yesterday.
Right.
The whole Iranian thing and how it relates to this. Could no longer bail out Hamas. The president also leveraged Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt to coerce Hamas into the deal. It turns out these U.S. partners had that power all along. Qatar seems to have been influenced by Israel's much denounced September 9th strike on Hamas leaders in Doha, which endangered the ruling family's lucrative double game. That threat, along with U.S. conciliations that followed, coaxed Qatar to demand its Hamas client sign on the dotted line. The deal now opens the prospect, and we just touched on this yesterday, opens the prospect of expanding the Abraham Accords between Israel and the Arab states.
Well, this is, again, all right, so you talk about this 20-point plan, and we talked about why those contingencies matter beyond the hostage release, and then where it goes from there. Because, again, it's not just the rebuilding of Gaza, but it's also this new handshake that Trump has done between the U.S. and Middle East. These other nations who want to, if they want to play by the standard he's putting out there. Look, you want to prosper? You want to build tourism or whatever it is you're trying to do? You want your economy to improve? This is the road we can go down. The Saudis have talked about it for years. Beyond oil, we're going to have to do something. So they bought golf, the entire sport. And, you think about, and apparently a comedy festival.
They bought golf.
Yeah.
By the way, that's the first time ever you've snuck the sport of golf into the show. Usually it's me doing that.
And of course, I have to do it with a joke, right? But
yes,
it is. But you think about that. It is what we said in his first term. This is a guy who is a builder, right? Of any president we've ever had, he's uniquely qualified to show them, look at what could happen. Now, do I believe a resort is going to happen in Gaza? Not in my lifetime. But do I believe right now, sitting here right now, there is the potential, or at least very good possibility, that there is a much better situation, no more living under the thumb of terrorists for the peaceful people in Gaza, and a better jobs and marketplace situation for those who do live there. Then you extrapolate that out to all the other nations that have been our frenemies for a long, long time, and you change the nature of that relationship. You think about the fall of the Soviet Union. What happened after the fall of the Soviet Union? And you had banks and credit card companies come in there. You had this expansion of wealth. You had people living in Russia that were doing things that weren't allowed before, weren't available before. The same thing with Afghanistan. There was a different change while we were there in the culture because they were able to have a little more freedom. They weren't under the thumb of the Taliban. Well, now you have, again, this potential. Because they don't want war with terrorists basically deciding when the war is going to be and where it's going to be from here to the end of eternity. They don't. You're not going to these Arab nations.
Oh, okay.
You're not going to, sorry, I should be more clear on that, but Israel's not going to go away. So what is reality here? And also the generational thing. The younger generations coming in, well, they want that change too. They don't have that power right now. But more and more, you could see a growing economy in the Middle East. You could see these nations, again, taking the easier road, the more prosperous road that this particular president has laid out, and he's built credibility in two major ways. His history in business, but also his history as president, that if you mess with the U.S., we may not send troops, but we'll come after you, we'll disable you, and we will take care of that issue.
Well, we use our, surrogates, if you want to use Israel as a surrogate. I saw an article the other day saying, do you know how much of the United States foreign policy Israel has actually implemented? And it's something that we've said for a long time. Yeah, they've been our surrogate.
Right.
So there's things we don't have to do over there.
Right,
but when you look at it, it is what Trump did is completely the opposite of what Obama and Biden did. There is, and so much to talk about this here, that it's absolutely clear that if you want to get movement in any way, and we don't know where this is going to end up, but either way, however it ends up, it's going to be a victory for Trump or Israel. Because one way or another, if they stick to their guns, which it looks like he is, Hamas is gone.
Yeah.
You haven't defeated Islamic radicalism. I expect that to be part of the criticism. They think they've been. No, they don't. They've won this battle.
Right.
And they've given more hope. and you're expanding the peace accords in the Middle East, which is unprecedented to begin with.
So
the
many
Abraham
people
Accords.
so many nations that are a part of this,
and
have, whether they're directly involved, they have a direct interest in this working. That's the difference.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, when we read the 20 points, Eric, yesterday of the total peace plan, this only I think goes to part 4 of that.
Yeah,
the first phase of it.
Right.
Trump actually talked about in there the goal, a 2-state solution. That's why you actually saw that discussion. But the 2-state solution, where I said it's never going to happen because neither side wants it. Neither side wanted it if, Hamas didn't want it because it'd be Israel, but Israel didn't want it because there's not going to be any 2-state solution with Hamas because Hamas didn't want it. If Hamas is out completely, which is the whole goal, and the United States and the board is happy with where they're going, sure. If you're a separate government outside of Hamas or Islamic radicalism and terrorism, well, then you can have your state. And so they're actually promoting the fact that the president has set the path to a 2-state solution, which is mind-boggling.
Which is the only thing the left has been chanting for 2 years.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.